What is up, guys? Private Eye Russ here. Welcome to another episode of the Private Eye Russ Show. I am your host, owner, operator, full-service private investigation firm, criminal defense investigations, corporate theft investigations, litigation support investigations. Link will be in the description below. Company website. Hit me up on the contact page. Alternatively, you can send me a direct message, email-wise, info@privateeruss.com, or send me a direct message on X at Private Eye Russ. Join the Discord server as well, too. So let's go ahead and get straight into the meat and potatoes of this, all right? So many of you know I am a licensed private investigator. I own a private investigation firm as well, too. So I'm a company owner as well as an individual license holder, right? I have licenses in other states as well, too, and more are on the way. It makes it easier to conduct business. Not that I can't now, but it just makes it easier. Crossing T's, dotting I's, and all the rest of that stuff. I'm also a licensed bail bondsman. What many of you may not know is that I spent a large portion of my adult life and some of my childhood as a professional protection specialist. So that's executive protection work. I've also done countless private security details working as a private military contractor overseas in non-permissive environments. I've trained a bunch, countless executive protection specialists as well too, and I still do some training. I don't do as much executive protection work as I have done in the past, although recently in the month of November, I probably did 12, 13, maybe 15 details, one after another, just because, and the end of, as well as the very end of October, that came as a consequence of the assassination of Mr. Kirk. God rest his soul. Condolences to his family. All right, so we're going to go ahead and talk about a couple of different things. There's been a lot of speculation, and I get it. Whenever there's an investigation, something this high profile, what winds up happening is people, in the absence of information, people will speculate, and then their imaginations will run wild, and people on the internet can just come up with some really wild speculations. So this is not an attempt to put anybody down or throw shade on anybody or portray anyone in a negative light. I'm just going to give some of my opinions and some of my observations as a subject matter expert, which I am. All right, so first and foremost, we're going to go over to Sean Ryan's show. If you haven't seen it, Sean Ryan's show, great podcast. He's doing a lot of big things, man. The guy is just he's all over the place, not in a negative way, but in a really good way. And I think the sky's the limit for him. So he's had a sit down with the owner of Charlie Kirk's, the company that was providing security for Charlie Kirk's protection. So let's hear what he has to say, and I'm gonna react to some of these things going, as we go through. So I'll be pausing frequently.
On Monday before Charlie was killed, we have some correspondence with the chief of the school. Why he won't stand up like a man and admit this, I don't know. He's watching a bunch of men lose their careers, and he's okay with it. Hello, Chief Long. We received this message today from the student group. There is a student roof access pretty close to where CK will be set up at the Utah Valley. The Sorensen Center has a couple of staircases that go up to walkways on the roofs. I was told students have access above us. If this is true, it would be nice to either have it controlled access or allow one of my guys to be there as well if possible. He comes back and his last correspondence was, I got you covered. What else am I to do? Do a FOIA for his phone and have those records put out so everybody can see them. Do a FOIA for the communications for days leading up to it. And the truth's like a lion. You set it free and it'll fight for itself.
Does he have a name?
Chief Law was, I got you covered. What else am I to do? Do a FOIA for his phone.
Okay. So the gist of it is that in his text correspondence, he was communicating with the chief of police of that campus. Each college campus has their own security force, literally a chief of police. They're their own police entity, so police, a law enforcement agency. And so they're controlled by the president of the university and all the rest of that stuff. So, and the board members and everything else. So as you're setting up to go to a different venue, or as you're setting up your movements, we always conduct what's called a protective advance. The protective advance, the job of that is to run the route yourself, check out the timing, find out what the traffic is like during that particular part of the day. Like I'll run them literally on the same day and the same day of the week and the same time of the day. just because I want to know every single detail about that advance. You take copious pictures, you draw diagrams, and you picture in your brain. Maybe everything's not set up the way it's going to be set up when he's there, because they had a lot of tents and stage and all the rest of that stuff. But you picture it and you look around and you look for areas of vulnerability. So if there is a vulnerability, and it seems like they did know that the rooftop was an area of threat, or potential area of threat, then you would do things to mitigate that. So the way you mitigate things is obviously line of sight gets taken away. There are things you can use like balloons. There's also barriers you can put up, but the best thing to do would be to restrict access completely so that nobody goes up there. So he reaches out to the chief, and the chief says, we've got you covered. And that's the end of the communication as far as what he shows. Okay, so what more am I to do was his question. Here's what more you are supposed to do. As a person who's run details, and I've been told that I'm the biggest prick on the face of the earth when it comes to running a detail. I have fired guys on details because they weren't paying attention, and I will continue to do the same thing. You know why? Someone is trusting me with their safety. So, having said that, it's a perfect segue into here's what you do, Mr. Security Company owner. You reach out and you call and you find out what "we've got you covered" mean. What the hell does that mean? To me, it means absolutely nothing. It means jack shit. What more am I to do? Okay, do your damn job. I'm sorry. Sorry. Do your job. Your job is to find out exactly what's going to happen, not leave something that vague hanging in the air. Okay? So when you're doing your briefing, you'll say, okay, this is how we're going to deploy manpower. This is how we're entering the venue. This is how we're leaving the venue. This is how we're leaving the venue if there's an emergency. This is our primary exit, secondary exit, tertiary exit. Here's the closest hospital, the closest trauma center, the closest fire department. Does my client have health issues? Are they equipped to deal with him if he has some sort of episode? That's how finely detailed your advance has to be. Him being the company owner, communicating with the chief of police, what exactly? My next text would be, okay, wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't find out exactly what you're going to do to cover it. Why? The chief of police wasn't hired to protect Mr. Charlie Kirk. You were hired to protect Mr. Charlie Kirk. And in my opinion, the first thing I thought, and again, I hate Monday morning quarterbacking, and I hate jumping to conclusions. So I didn't really make a whole bunch of assessment about this sort of thing, even though I'm qualified to do so, more qualified than most of the people that are commenting on it. And I understand people are just kind of playing follow the leader because there are a lot of clicks and likes to be gained from this, and this is what people are here for, right? Okay, I got no shade for anybody. Do your thing, make your money, but at the end of the day, the chief of police is not responsible for Mr. Kirk's life. This gentleman is responsible for Mr. Kirk's life. So what more could you do? You could have followed up with, okay, exactly what are you going to do? And if they came back with an answer I didn't like, I would say, okay, here's what I need to do then. Or I would get on the phone and call them and say, hey, here's what I need to do. If you don't have a person to go up there, let me have one of my people up there. Or even better yet, here's what I would have done. I would have restricted access or requested restricted access to that stairwell altogether and placed a man there to make sure nobody goes there. Or put somebody on the roof with a pair of binoculars. He can watch the roof and watch the crowd at the same time. There's so many things that could have been handled differently. You can't count on locals. Okay, the locals will perform and snap to when the president's in town. Everything else, it's an off-duty detail. They're getting paid. Cops are notoriously lazy. I was a cop. I know how cops act. I don't typically use most cops for protection details, unless I know them. There are some guys here, Orange County guys, really, really good. There's a couple of guys from out of town. Shout out to Ryan. Old school cop. Even though he looks like a young guy, he's actually an old school cop. But these are guys that are professionals. All right. And so I've dealt with lazy cops. I've dealt with guys that are really on top of things, man. But you cannot count on that when you go into a strange place. Okay, so, first thing I thought was, okay, rooftop shooter. How on earth was a guy able to gain rooftop access? And what he went on to say was that the window of the sight line was incredibly small, like 6 feet or wherever it was, 6 feet this way or 6 feet that way. He has no shot. Okay, and then that simplifies things as far as preventing the tragedy that unfolded. Unfolded. You know what I mean? It just seems like the man should still be alive today. Now, do I think that means that he was complicit? I really don't think so. I know we've heard a lot of stories about hand signals and all the rest of these things. As a matter of fact, I think I have a video here queued up for hand signals. Yes, I do. Okay, so the hand signal thing. Here's another thing. I'm done beating up on the company owner. That's what he should have done. He should have gone further. All right, so let's keep going into this next one. Fair use.
Ladies and gentlemen, these are hand signals being given to Charlie Kirk's assassin beforehand. There were two from the guy in the white.
Counting or not counting gang violence?
Then look,
Counting or not counting gang
it's like a third base coach. And then there you go. Again, I'm gonna turn down the volume here. All right before the shooting, one hand sign, then the ear, and then we have a third base coach behind him. Let's find out who these two guys are. We're talking about, look, 1, 2, 1, 2, talking about, and then that was actually the shot right there, believe it or not. They must have confidence in the shooter because they're standing.
All right, let's pause there for a moment. Fair use. Shout out to this guy. I didn't play the beginning of his video. This is for Mr. World News Report Today. Shout out to him. And again, people are speculating because they don't know what happened, and the government is not, they don't have the best track record, let's be honest, of being forthright. I could go into the whole Epstein and did he or did he not delete himself? No one with a working brain believes that he deleted himself. So I understand why people think that there's a lot of complicity, malfeasance, and they're holding back information. They're holding back information because it's an investigation. You're not supposed to give it out to the general public. I know people have called out for that. That's not how it works. Not with an effective investigation. So now let's go ahead and talk about the hand signals, because that was a big thing. Hand signals, like, do we use hand signals from time to time? I've worked on venues as small as visiting someone's home to stadiums. And so do you use hand signals sometimes? Yes, you do. So I use, a multitude of different types of earpieces. Sometimes you just use a Bluetooth with a push-to-talk walkie-talkie hooked up to it. Other times you use like a long line with a palm mic, throat microphones, but they all have the earpieces that go over your ear and tuck inside your ear. And I've worn those for years. So even with those microphones, with and those earpieces, with quality communications, can you always hear? No, not when there's a huge crowd. You can't always hear. Do we use hand signals? Sometimes you have to. Do I believe this was a hand signal setting up Mr. Kirk's ultimate demise? Absolutely not. And I'll tell you why. Just from one particular standpoint. And again, I don't know these guys. I don't know the company owner. Never dealt with the company itself. Don't know any of his operators. Never met any of these guys. I know a lot of guys, but I never met them. But there are a lot of guys who do this type of work. So there's a lot of guys that I never would have met. All right. So everybody, everywhere you go, when you're performing an executive protection detail for the last 10 years or so, everyone knows that when you're out in public, everybody has these. When they see you with your client and they realize your client has security, they're videotaping every single thing you do. So that's number one. If they were complicit, which I don't believe they were, they wouldn't be using overt hand signals. Why would you need a hand signal to set up a shot? Doesn't make any sense. Again, not putting down the people that have this speculation, but it doesn't make sense from a couple of different standpoints. I've been under fire. I've also had to return fire. And here's where you don't want to be. You don't want to be standing behind or near someone who's about to be blasted. All right, so why would they be in such close proximity? They would not. Number two, if you're going to do something that evil, all right, and we're talking about men who have signed up to put themselves in harm's way for someone else's safety. I've done that multiple times. Here's what I do. I take my job extremely seriously. I've never lost a client, not through being deleted. We've had clients that didn't need protection anymore. We've had clients that died of natural causes. That sort of thing happens, or they move out of our area of operation, and so I'm not going to pick up and move. If someone moves to France or something like that, they'll have to pick up another team somewhere else. Some guys will travel around the world with people. I'm not going to do that because I have my my company I run here. I have cases I run here. I have clients, a ton of clients here in the local area and around the country, so I can't just get up and go. But I've never lost one through any sort of violent action. Okay, so do I believe these guys with that mentality? You have to have that type of dedication because you guys see them on film for a little bit. It is a thankless job. There are a lot of hours that go into this sort of work. Do I believe that they would be complicit? No, I don't. Now, obviously, I can be proven wrong. I'm just saying that from my perspective, people that sign up for that type of work aren't going to put, especially someone who's under threat. Like there's plenty of clients we have that may not be under a specific threat, but under general threat. There's different types of threat, and maybe we'll talk about that at some point. But he was under specific threat. People had threatened to delete him. Okay, so do I believe there was a projectile or some sort of explosive device in his microphone? No, I do not. Now, do I believe that the Mossad could set something like that up? Yes, they could. They are incredibly artful when it comes to removing people they don't want to be here anymore. Incredibly so. But here's what they are. They're not stupid. Deleting an American who's this popular and this prominent and this influential in the United States of America, I'm sorry, I'm not buying it. They're not dumb. Okay, now they'll do that and videotape it for some dude they hate who happens to be a member of Hezbollah or some other group. Yeah, they'll videotape and they'll announce it. He was eliminated, and they'll put it on the news. And this is how he was eliminated. We put some ricin poison on his toothpick or something like that. They're incredibly good at doing that. So I don't believe they would have had anything to do with this. I also don't believe that the President of the United States had anything to do with this or that the man's wife had anything to do with this. Why can't it be the answer that we see in front of us, this weirdo, this pipsqueak who fired a rifle into someone who was saying things he doesn't like? This sort of thing happens nowadays. So you don't need, if it was some government organization setting up a shot at the man, they would be a lot more careful and they would cover their tracks a lot better than to have people, the security guys, complicit, giving hand signals, whatever it is. It just doesn't make any sense, guys. So try to think critically, just because some of this stuff just doesn't make sense. And I'm not trying to make fun of anybody, but this just doesn't make sense. All right, let's keep going.
Right behind the gentleman. 1, 2. He actually points at him too and brings the camera closer. And then look, third base coach comes on. And that's the actual shot. I will turn it up so y'all can hear the shot. It's sad. Watch him. He touches his hat, then he points at him. Watch him point. Point.
Okay, there was also a point where someone noticed the company owner receiving something in his hand from somebody, and why did they cover that? People cover stuff like that all the time. Like guys, this is not, and these things are not signs of complicity. A lot of things happen all the time. People will hand somebody off. Apparently, he said he was being handed mints by somebody. Does that make sense? Yeah, of course it does. I like to chew gum, but you can't be on stage with somebody doing this number. So I'll have mints. I'll have power bars, mints, electrolyte replacement powder, just a bunch of different things because you don't get to eat or drink very often or very frequently. Not when you want to. You also don't get to go to the bathroom when you want to go. And so, the movements these guys are doing, the hand signals, all the rest of these things does not add up to being complicit. Now, here's what I will say, what we talked about before with not covering the rooftop. And you got these people that go online and they're behavioral specialists and body language specialists, and they're like, oh, okay, well, he looks this. Yeah, of course he's nervous. The guy, look, okay, who's going to hire him? Who is good? Not saying that he did anything on purpose. Not saying that he was complicit, but who's going to hire him? Even if it was completely not his fault, who is going to hire him to protect them? Who? No one. Who's going to hire the guys? Like, those guys better be scrubbing their resumes and seeking employment someplace else. But the word's going to get out at some point. Oh, who'd you work for? Oh, you were protecting Mr. Kirk when he was slain. Okay, yeah, we'll call you. Nobody's going to hire them unless, like maybe it's a relative or something like that. Their chances of getting work in this industry, in the protection industry, are extremely, like, their chances are slim and none, and slim just left Tom. So he went from having probably a very lucrative contract to, well, obviously now there's an old school book that I used to have. Maybe I'll find it somewhere. It was by a guy named Leroy Thompson, British guy. Kind of a hokey book, a little bit cheesy, but the title of it was Dead Clients Don't Pay. All right. And so your job is to keep them alive. Clearly they did not. We already talked about the rooftop thing, but do I think that was through any malfeasance? I don't think it was through malfeasance. I personally, and I can't speak for him, but what I would say to him was, in that particular instance, what can you do? Because he posed the question, you should have followed up with more questions and then solutions, and negotiate if you have to. So again, you go on these protective advances, I'm going to scope out everything. And then I'm even going to go so far as to scope out and write down in my notes, okay, who do I need to tip at the hotel? Who do I need to tip at the restaurant to get the seats we want? Who do I need to tip here when we're going to, if he wants to go to this place or that place? Who do I need to tip? Because you got to tip everybody. And that's just to grease the wheels. And so we'll have cash on hand just for that, because people want cash. Nobody wants a check. Nobody wants to swipe a credit card. They want cash. And so the concierge gets money. The valet, they're going to get money, and say, hey, look, when you get this, when we get here, and I'll tell them, you'll get this much when we leave. We want favorable parking. We don't have to wait for our vehicles. We want our vehicles there right up front and center, right under the awning, all our vehicles right there. And we want our vehicles under watch the whole time. The restaurant, okay, we want a table right here near the back, away from the bathroom, so there's not constant foot traffic going back and forth. And we want another table adjacent to have the watchers who can sit there looking nonchalant, sipping mineral water and eating a salad. You don't eat heavy when you're watching your client. I've seen guys order like lasagna or whatever else, and it's like, no, we're not here to eat. We're here to watch. We're here to try to look, try to blend into the surroundings as much as we can. Typically, we're all very athletic guys that got our eyes going back and forth and their heads on a swivel, but you try to blend in as much as you can. You eat something light, like a salad or a light sandwich or whatever, hors d'oeuvres or an appetizers, and mineral water. Why? You also don't want to get sick. You eat something strange you haven't had before. Next thing you know, you're having stomach issues, which will make the details seem twice as long. So just wanted to add some a little bit of my knowledge. Again, I've got a lot of knowledge of, when it comes to executive protection, a ton of it. And so, if you guys have questions about specific things on that day, let me know. And I added that thing about the Israeli connection because I really don't think that they had anything to do with it. They're incredibly, incredibly good at wiping people off the board. They can make you disappear. They can make you look like you passed away of natural causes, or they can make your demise very, very public and splashy. But to do that to an American, especially one as well connected as Mr. Kirk, and whether he was moving away from the Israel lobby or not, that doesn't matter. At the end of the day, if they wanted his influence, they want him alive. So again, I can't speak for them. I'm not simping for them. I'm just speaking from the heart, where I think if they want you gone, you're gone. And I don't think they really wanted this guy. I don't think they wanted him gone. They wanted his influence. I think the guy who wanted him gone is the guy who perched up on that rooftop. And also, too, there was another thing. The round that was fired. Okay, so one of the things, I was talking to a buddy of mine, Bill, online, on X. We're not talking, but we're texting back and forth. He's the one who alerted me that Mr. Kirk was gone. I was working at the time, and so I don't always get to look at the news or whatever it is. And so when I saw the video, I was like, man, what kind of rifle was that? Because it didn't sound like a high powered rifle. And then they said that it was a Mauser. Now, I used to own an 8mm Mauser. I've also owned 30-06 rifles. I've only ever fired full power rifle rounds through either one of those rifles. I got rid of a German 8mm Mauser, and I wish I hadn't gotten rid of it. It was in really, really good shape. Had the German markings. You know what type of German markings I'm talking about on it. And I sold it, and I probably could get 10 times that today, but whatever. I also sold a Browning High Power, an original Browning High Power, and a Walther PPK S stainless steel. All firearms I wish I hadn't sold, but I traded and sold them, and so you move on. But the thing about the round, initially I was like, okay, so if that was a 30-06 fired from 140 yards, and just a side note, 140 yards, initially people were saying that was a long shot. He must be a trained sniper. 140 yards, I could have anybody hitting a target with a non-magnified optic rifle from 200 yards in a half an hour. You'd be ringing steel from that far, literally 30 minutes. It's a layup when it comes to a rifle. Pistol shot, that's a longer shot. That's a long shot with a pistol. I know guys who can hit that consistently from a draw just like that. However, these guys are literally firearm nerds. Like, that's all they do all day, every day. And so competitive shooters. And so when it comes to different rounds, right, there are different bullet weights and there are different levels of charge. All right, so the bullet weight, like say for instance, 5.56. 5.56 has everything from 55 grain projectile all the way up to 72 grain projectile. And so the speed of the bullet and the weight of the bullet are going to affect the ballistics and the terminal velocity. So with hunting rounds, the 30-06, you've got some that are made for varminting. That means taking out small nuisance creatures like say coyotes or even like rabbits or things like that, although that's still a little bit much, but you still can use them for that. And you have things that you have rounds that are made for hunting deer or elk even. Although so with elk you'd want something a little bit heavier. But that so there's a big variance. And at first I thought, okay, if it was a full power rifle round, there's no way there wouldn't be some sort of exit wound. And I think what happens is people are getting caught up in looking at this really grainy, not very detailed, far away, zoomed in video from someone's cell phone. And it doesn't really show a whole bunch. And there's a lot of distortion and things moving around. And here's something I know, having seen people get shot on many, many occasions, is bullets can do some strange things. And apparently this one went in and went downwards. Have I seen that before? Yes, I have. And so especially when you're talking about a smaller round with lighter charge, it is feasible that there wouldn't be an exit wound. All right, so the varmint round that I'm talking about, like for coyotes, those are designed to mushroom as they go through the hollow point rounds, and they're not designed to fly through the coyote. Coyote is a tiny, 25 pounds, 30-pound coyote would be a big coyote. All right, so you're getting a picture in your head of how big they're tiny, and so they're very thin-skinned, very small-boned creatures, and they're much smaller than a human being, and so. Would it with a full-grown man, something that was designed for that? Would there be an exit wound? Probably not. And so, anyway, my goal with this video was not to cause controversy, just giving my take on some of these things. I'm not a ballistics expert. I have seen many people get deleted over the years, unfortunately. And I've been on the receiving end of ballistic incoming as well too, as well as delivered some as well too. So again, not a ballistics expert, but I do know a little bit about this. So I just wanted to share some of my takes from the protective theory part, from an executive protection specialist who's also spent a lot of time working on private security details, and working as a civilian military contractor in non-permissive environments. Just my take. So I will talk to you guys in the next one. Let me know what you guys think. Oh, before I go, please hit like, subscribe, share, and get in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think about this, about my my analysis of some of this. I haven't gone through everything. Obviously, I'm trying to keep some of the bigger social media people out of my out of my video stuff, just because it just the back and forth and stuff like that. I just think it's kind of silly with some of this stuff, man. People are so angry with each other, and I get it. People want answers, and I'd like to know exactly what happened in very detailed fashion, but I don't think we're going to get that for a very long time. So anyways, your boy Private Eye Russ. I will talk to you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Bye.